You're live.
Good evening and welcome to the November 15th City of Las Cruces Planning and Zoning Commission. Apologize for the mix-up here, but we got our fourth member to make a quorum tonight, so we are going to get started. All right, thank you for the folks who we were able to bring back from the parking lot. Hopefully we were able to get everybody. Apologize for the confusion and chaos here this evening, but we're gonna go ahead and push forward on tonight's agenda. So with that, can I get, let's see, do we have any conflict of interest this evening? Hearing none, can I get a motion to accept tonight's agenda?
I make a motion that we accept tonight's agenda.
A second?
Mr. Chair, you have a motion and a second for approval of the agenda. I'll take roll. Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Acosta?
Yes.
Commissioner Vega?
Yes.
And Chair Kaiser?
Yes. All right, we have the minutes from the October 25th meeting. Can I get a motion and a second to approve? Or are there any comments, rather, on the minutes from last month before we do? Okay, hearing none, can I get a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
I second.
Mr. Chair, you have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. I'll call roll. Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Acosta?
Yes.
Commissioner Vega?
Yes.
And Chair Kaiser?
Yes. All right, we do not have any postponements, so we'll move on to public participation. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak on an item that is not on the agenda tonight? Yes, sir. And before you begin, just to confirm, this is on something that's not on the agenda tonight?
I do.
Okay. All right. Can you please state your name for the record and I'll swear you in?
My name is Gregory Shervanick, S-H-E-R-V-A-N-I-C-K. Mr. Chairman, I would like to address you and the commissioners concerning a point that took place in January the 25th, 2022. I would like to read an email, which is a public document that was sent to Mr. Nichols concerning this matter, and provide to the commission a number of documents. To the recorder, I will give them the full amount of documents listed as attached documents. If you would like copies, I have summary copies for the commissioners. May I speak?
Yeah, let me swear you in before you do. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
All right, I will give you 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
November 13th, 2022, Director of Las Cruces Community Development, Mr. Nichols. During a review of the files from the Doñana Assessor's Office and the Doñana Clerk's Office for account number R19044159 and reception number 22225434 and listed as a property in Las Cruces at 2700 North Main Street. The case number 21Z0500098 and case number 21Z0500112. These documents appear to be incorrect and are not recognized by the file documents at the Doñana County office. I have attached them. At issue would be if the owner described by the case number 21Z005001112 was granted a rezoning request for the account and parcel number 4007133268 was not listed on the instrument, and the current owner of the time of application during the January 25th, 2022 Planning and Zoning meeting, would there be a problem with current or future development? Since participation when speaking at Planning and Zoning is authorized after an oath of affirmation as it is administered, are the facts of that case 21Z005001112 accepted and are in the minutes of the February 22nd meeting of this body? Is the person who was affirmed fulfilling that oath correctly allowed to have the rezoning? Staff recommended list that this action of rezoning, case number 21Z005001112, followed Elevate Las Cruces and the strategic plan. If the person that represented themselves as the owner was not accurate, would this change the rezoning of 2700 North Main Street under the current policies? Attached to the documents to this email are the Doñana Assessor's page, the Doñana Assessor's record and reception number, the Doñana County detail of demolition for this property, which is incomplete, a warranty deed issued on September the 19th, 2022. An IPRA for public documents was filed on November 13th for other public records with the city clerk. I'm also asking for those documents, and since they have not been given to me, I cannot tell you what they are. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And I certainly don't have the answers to your questions this evening. It sounds like there's a question about property ownership and applicant mismatch for a rezoning. Does that more or less summarize what I heard? Okay. We'll certainly make sure that staff gets your information and can follow up with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not asking for any resolution or discussion of this item. I am just making it known into the public record that I believe there's a deviation and an abnormality concerning a rezoning that took place by this body.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, is there anybody else in the audience tonight that wishes to speak on an item that is not on tonight's agenda? All right, seeing none, we will continue with the consent agenda. We do not have any items, so we will move on to old business and item 8.1, which is a request to approve a special use permit to allow a helipad associated with the Three Crosses Regional Medical Hospital. Staff, please go ahead.
Good evening, Commission, Mr. Chair. Tonight, my name is John Castillo, for the record. I'm with Community Development. Tonight, we have a special use permit at 2560 Samaritan Drive. Currently, 2560 Samaritan Drive is home to the Three Crosses Regional Hospital. It is sitting on approximately 10.61 acres. The property is currently zoned C3C, which is a commercial high-intensity conditional. The proposed helipad location is a vacant parking lot island on the southeast corner of the facility. As you can see here from the image, this is a zoning map showing where the subject property will be located. This is also an aerial image of the subject property that's highlighted of the placement of the proposed helipad. So tonight's proposal is for a helipad located at the southeast corner of the parking facility, approximately 95 feet from emergency facilities. It will also have a 60-foot by 60-foot final approach and takeoff area, as we can see here by this site plan. So the property will conform to all requirements for an SUP or special use permit of a heliport or helistop as outlined in section 38-54. These requirements are federal airspace protection regulations, including 14 CFR Part 77, as well as meeting our outdoor lighting ordinance, and will also be designed and constructed in accordance with the FAA AC 150-5392C. At the time of this presentation, reviews were sent to all relevant agencies and departments, which all supported the proposed SUP. A notice was also sent out to surrounding properties within 500 feet. Staff did receive at the time of this presentation that was built, staff did receive 2 emails and a phone call. One email and phone call was concerning the development of the helipad in proximity to the existing neighborhood. The second email was informational, wanting to know about the date and time of the meeting for the helipad discussion. Since then, we have received other emails and regarding concerned neighborhood residents in the area. Today, staff recommends approval based upon findings found in the staff report. These findings will be: the helipad will meet the Las Cruces outdoor lighting ordinance. The proposed SUP will follow all of the requirements for a special use permit as outlined in section 38-54 of the 2001 zoning code. The proposed SUP meets the purpose and intent requirements of section 38-2 of the 2001 zoning code. The proposed helipad will be in accordance with federal airspace protection regulation and all applicable requirements as outlined in the 2001 zoning code, as amended, and those stipulated by the Federal Aviation Administration. Today, your options will be to vote yes to approve, vote no to deny, vote yes with conditions, or vote to table.
All right, thank you. Is there any questions from commissioners? Okay, I have a few questions.
Just to interject, Mr. Chair, I also do have the applicant's representative here that has a presentation as well, if you'd like to hear that.
Okay, yes, let's do that before I ask my questions. Thank you. And before you get started, sir, can I swear you in? Please state your name.
Paul Pompeo.
And do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, I do.
Please go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I have a brief presentation, and following that, I would be happy to answer any questions you have. I also have with me tonight John Lanning, who is the CEO of the hospital, and he would like to say a few words after I finish with my presentation. Basically, what we have before us is a special use permit to allow for the operation of a hospital helipad. The location is within the boundaries of the operating Three Crosses Regional Medical Center campus. Once again, as staff noted, in approximately this area here. This heliport is to serve emergency helicopter transport of critically ill patients, primarily cardiac trauma in nature. I'd like to point out that transportation by helicopter is both into the hospital, and if they're critical more than this hospital can provide service, then there's also flights that go from this hospital to Thomason and El Paso, which is our level 3 trauma facility in this area. Once again, the proposed helipad will be located in the southeast corner of the medical campus. This location is required as the distance of the helipad to the emergency room is within acceptable medical standards for walking distance. Approach to the helipad, and you can see that I've put in denoted in red on this, is the flight path that is on our documents. It's also on the documents that have been submitted to FAA, and I want to speak to that. Approach to the helipad will be from the southwest and departure to the north. There will be no flight path into the hospital or out from the hospital eastbound over the existing residential neighborhood. At this point, I'd like to pause Mr. Chairman, and state that I have been made aware of an email that was presented to the planning staff from an adjacent property owner stating that that they had observed helicopter traffic flying over that neighborhood. I have talked to Mr. Lanning and Mr. Bob Pofall, who's another developer of this area. They have made it perfectly clear to me that they have reached out to Navajo Air and have been in discussions with him about not flying over that neighborhood anymore. So we have heard it, and we believe that we have addressed that. Basically, as staff pointed out, the guiding design document is the U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Aviation Administration Advisory Circle number 153902C, which is heliport designed, and the design of this facility is based on that FAA circular. FAA notification. As part of the proposed construction activities, the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Aviation Administration, FAA Form 4880-1, Notice of Construction Alteration or Deactivation of Airports is required. Mr. Chairman, what's on your screen is the front page to that packet is in the back, so you can see the title, but the document before you is what we have filled out and has been submitted to FAA for the construction of this facility. Also, Mr. Chairman, and as provided to staff, SMA reached out to the air ambulance company, and we got the exact aircraft model numbers and the base of operation of where these helicopters fly out of. What's before you here in the notes is the noise level or decimal levels of what these helicopters would produce on flyover, takeoff, and approach. Obviously, approach has the highest decibel level. The documents below that are smaller in nature are just the data sheets from the specific helicopters that were provided to us so that you can show that those match. So this information was provided to staff. From the chart that was provided, Mr. Chairman, the maximum noise level at the center of the helipad is 95 decibels. The closest corner of adjacent house to the corner of the helipad is 480 feet. Calculating the noise propagation, which is the equation listed before you, calculates to a decibel level of 57 decibels at the corner of the closest house to this operating helipad. And we can see from the chart that I provided to the right that it's somewhat down in the noise, allowable noise, where we talk about what the different noise levels are, so for a comparison, Mr. Chairman. With that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. I would be happy to answer any question the commission may have. And once again, I would introduce Mr. John Lanning, who's the CEO of the hospital.
And before you speak, can you state your name so I can swear you in?
Sure. John Lanning.
And do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Please go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I appreciate your time. I just wanted to make the point also, in addition to Mr. Pompeo, is we are an acute care hospital licensed in the state of New Mexico, licensed with Medicare and Medicaid, which means that we must operate a 24/7, 365 emergency room. We employ a group of interventional cardiologists who have been in this community for a number of years and have a large patient base and continue to grow that patient base, which really includes any of the emergent type cases that come, but also elective type stuff. We have tried to be good neighbors with all of our neighbors. I've talked to several of the neighbors to our east. We are working, as Mr. Pompeo had stated, that we are working with Native Air to make sure that they approach from the proper angles. And we have had some complaints that they have come over the east side. So we are working to make sure that that does not happen. But all that said, I think the important thing to know is that we have some emergent needs for people's lives, whether it's us shipping them out somewhere or them coming in from some of the surrounding communities that just do not have those services available. So we're here to serve the community. We're very new to the community, but we feel like, we've really gotten off to a good start, and we feel like this is very important to us, to being able to continue to serve the community of Las Cruces.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll come back to the commission. Any questions, please?
All right, I just have a question here regarding the usage of the helicopter. Is it specifically for patients, or is there, I guess, uses on that? And then on top of that, I just did want to clarify as far as the specialized services that patients may actually be using here in Las Cruces. Which ones are those, if that's the cardiac care, if I believe? Because I do know we do end up shipping out a lot of people here, so I was just kind of curious to fill in what medical needs, this helipad is really serving.
Sure. The reason for the helipad is not going to be used for anything other than patient transport. So there's no other uses for that. Primary use that we typically are seeing currently, and I don't know if you guys know this or not, but we've had several helicopters land in our parking lot, and that's the reason we're addressing some of the flight pattern things. So currently the helicopters are landing in the far southeast corner. Where the new helicopter pad is proposed to be, it'll be actually closer to the actual emergency room and closer to the hospital, further away from the homes. Cardiology could be, in some cases, other trauma type cases that may require emergent type transportation. If it's a bad enough orthopedic issue or something like that, where somebody has, broken ribs, punctured lung, whatever, those are types of things that could be transferred into us. Our primary services that we provide right now, we have general surgeons on call, we have orthopedics on call, we have cardiology on call, and several other lesser specialties that maybe are not as much associated with trauma. But those are the primary reasons that we need that. We do have people that walk into our ER or drive into our ER that find out that they have a very severe medical emergency that we may not be able to take care of, and we need to transfer them out. And I can tell you that happened today. We had one that needed to be transferred out today. So,
thank you.
yep.
Any other questions? Okay, so I got a couple of questions. One I think has somewhat been spoken to, but that is certainly the noise component of a helicopter flying in and out of this hospital. Recognize that there's certainly a community and public health need. We saw the decibel calculations. I'm not a noise expert, so I take that for what it is. So I guess my question around noise perhaps is, you mentioned the emergency room is a 24/7 operation. Is that the same expectation for the helipad, that at any time during the day helicopters can fly in, or is there any consideration to sort of hours of operation with that?
The answer to that is they can come in any time of the day. We can't control when those emergencies occur and how quickly we need to get them in or out, for that matter.
Sure, okay. And then I imagine there's been some number crunching to understand what the financial impact of this is to the hospital. So any rough estimate on what you guys are seeing as far as the sort of the weekly usage of this helipad?
Currently, we're probably having about 2 or 3 landings a week, depending on the day, obviously.
Okay, thank you. So along those lines, I happen to live in the neighborhood. I've seen some of the flights come in and out. The one thing that, aside from the noise, which we've discussed, is the dust when they come in and land. Any consideration to how to mitigate that? We live, unfortunately, in a very dusty place, so I know there's going to be some impact there, but you've got residents that are, really backed right up against there, and the dust is very fine particles, as we know every spring. It gets into the house one way or another. I don't know how, but so anything that you can speak to about that issue?
Where we're proposing to put the helicopter pad is going to be much closer to the hospital, much further away from the dusty or the unfinished areas of our property. So currently we're landing literally in that southeast corner of the parking lot, right up next to all the desert land there. So the helipad will be paved. It'll be, with I think 95 feet of the 60 by 60, but within 95 feet of the hospital, whereas now it's probably closer to a couple hundred yards out from the hospital.
Okay, thank you. And then I think my next questions are primarily towards staff or for staff. I guess I'll start with the meeting on May 26th with the neighborhood. Could you just speak a little bit more about that meeting? How many people showed up? What kind of conversation did you have? Can you just describe the issues that were discussed in that meeting?
Mr. Chair, for point of order, the meeting was preempted by the applicant and their representative. During a pre-application meeting, staff recommended that what we call early notification be sent out to the neighborhood, as this may be a topic of concern.
Okay, so I'll redirect that to the applicant then.
Yeah, we sent out notice to all the households that we were required to send to in that general neighborhood. I can't remember the exact count. I think it was about 15 to 20 people that showed up from the neighborhood. We reviewed the plans for the helipad and what was going on there, but we also were discussing what our overall operation has been. There was some misconceptions of what was going to be, and I think more concern about what was going to be around the hospital in the future, and we just talked through that. So it was really kind of an open forum conversation about the growth of the hospital, what our plans were, and then, of course, what was going on with the helipad.
Okay, was there any conversation about noise or dust or anything?
Not
like
to
that?
my recollection. I was there that entire time, and that was not discussed. It was more about where the helipad would be, what the flight patterns would be.
Great, thank you. And then my last question, I think it's my last question, this is definitely for staff. So this commission earlier this year approved a rezoning for the vacant properties or parcels that are around the hospital. Has there been any consideration to how this particular use might affect that future development? That's obviously a major redevelopment opportunity within the city, and I hate for us to get 5-6 years down the road and find out that this isn't all going to work together. So I'm just wondering, has there been any thought or analysis from staff on that?
Mr. Chair, Commission, to answer the question, staff is in the process right now working with Sauter Miller and Associates on a master plan proposal for the remainder parcels or the remainder vacant areas of the old country club. So we are working with Sauter Miller and Associates to align the recent zone change and the Apodaca blueprint together.
Okay, but specifically a helicopter flying in and out, I mean, there's obviously got to be clearances that are going to have to be met. You've got power lines on the east with the neighborhood that they just said they're promising not to fly over. You're going to have additional development basically under that flight path that was shown on the screen tonight. So, and that rezoning had height requirements, minimum height requirements, and I just want to make sure that we're all looking at this together.
Yes, as we get further into the process of the master planning, preliminary plat and final platting aspects of everything, the heliport or the helipad and final approach takeoffs and liftoffs will be taken into consideration.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will go to members of the public. Can I get a show of hands of who wishes to speak on this item so I can get a head count? I see 2 hands up. All right, we will do 3 minutes each. I'm going to start with the lady in the blue. If you can please state your name so I can swear you in.
Eva Navarez St. John, President of Country Club Neighborhood Association.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
Yes.
Please begin.
Well, for one, I was not prepared to speak or address this issue. I thought Connie Potter would be here to do so. Personally, I live all the way on the east side, so I'm not directly impacted. But hopefully everybody's received her email talking about the flights that she has experienced, which is on a very regular basis, and directly over her home and over the power lines. And I know she's made many efforts to communicate with the CEO of the hospital, with the FAA, I believe. I'm not sure who else. Dennis Beatty, I'm not who said that is. But nothing has seemed to be able to be effective in causing them to change the flight patterns when currently the 75 plus acres is vacant, and I don't understand why they have to fly over the neighborhood and in that direction. Also, personally, I would question exactly how many of these patients a small, tiny hospital all of a sudden has a need for so many helicopter flights in and out. How many of these patients are actually served at that hospital and not possibly transported elsewhere? So that's one of my concerns right there. But, as far as public meetings, that's all kind of a scam. Really, it's just whatever's required, notification given to the whatever's required. And it's, we're just told what they're going to do. It really doesn't matter what we say. It doesn't matter what we say to this committee. That's why I'm done with it personally. I can challenge, whatever their presentations are. It doesn't matter. So, just to say, it would be nice if there was some respect shown to residents. Like I said, this is totally unnecessary that at this point they have to go over people's houses when they've got 75 vacant acres to go over. So, I doubt that there's anything you guys will do about it, but it would be nice if there was some restrictions and some requirement for, basic human decency. I personally feel she's even being targeted to a certain extent. They have 13 acres. Before they developed this, they could have figured out a place to put a helipad that wasn't right immediately adjacent to the properties, the existing neighborhood in general, and Connie Potter's house in particular. So that's my 2 cents for the public record.
Thank you. All right, and gentlemen, would you like to come forward?
Mr. Chairman.
And just restate your name for the record.
My name is Gregory Shervanik, Shervanik.
All right, please begin. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I would like to ask you to deny completely this application, and the reasons being that originally there had been a plan in the early stages of the hospital building where this was discussed. And of course, since it wasn't permitted at that time, it is now something that they think they need. Also, according to the staff reports, page 2, third paragraph, flights will only take place from the north and southwest. Under suitability of the site, I believe this is contrary to all the elements of Elevate Las Cruces except for in the present tense, meaning currently. Any future development, as the chairman mentioned, concerning the property to the south and east of that, which also is in question based on the rezoning that I asked you about earlier. And that case number, again, is 20Z050098. During that discussion with this body, Tetra Property Group listed a number of elements for rezoning of those properties. If you allow this to go through, you don't allow the future to make a decision on something that you will do tonight based on Elevate Las Cruces, and Elevate Las Cruces does not support this as a future and sustainable item. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public that wishes to speak on this item? Seeing none, I will come back to the commission. Are there any additional questions from the commission?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment to make. I'd like to address the lady that had concerns about whether this commission, will even take this seriously. I would just want you to know that we do. We're residents of this city. I've lived here for 24 years. I've lived downtown, and I am sensitive, very sensitive to anything that happens that affects residents in this city. The city has grown in the 24 years since I've been here. There have been 2 hospitals built since I've been here. We have people that are moving here from all over the country. Las Cruces is a place that people want to come to retire. And one of the draws is, health facilities, medical facilities. So, there will be situations where people need to be flown to a level 3 trauma center, which is in El Paso. And it's been happening, for years with Memorial Medical Center. I'm sure those helicopters have flown over many residents over the years. I understand, you've lived there for a long time possibly, and so you are concerned about how many flights are going to be coming, in and out of this hospital. You have stated that it is a tiny hospital. You don't understand why they need it, but there is a need. We have people moving here, and the city has grown. That's why we have another hospital, and these hospitals will be serving our community. It may be a situation where someone in your neighborhood may need a flight to El Paso. So I just want you to know that we are very concerned about your concerns, but at the same time, we will sit here and make the best decision for the city and also for the applicant. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to just start with one question. I think probably for the CEO. I just wanted to ask, as far as like insurance for that helicopter or the driver or the hospital, does it cover the surrounding neighborhoods, and how does that work? The second just comment I do want to make in regards to the public is just that in New Mexico as a whole, we have 12 hospitals total that are even capable of taking care of STEMIs, which are like heart attacks. And there's literally inter-hospital transport protocol for this kind of stuff. And I do believe that's not even like half of what people are being transported in and out of that hospital for. So guys, we need to really make sure people have access to care in this state where we are already rural enough as it is. And for these guys to come in and give us a higher standard of care than we are accustomed to, and they're really shooting to be, I believe, 5-star accredited from what I had understood in the past, and I don't know if they're all the way there yet and how that all works, but I do appreciate where they are coming from. And so you guys, if you're ever having a heart attack and you're in a hospital that can't transport you out and you have to drive 15 minutes to the nearest helipad and your life's on the line, it's just that, or it's your mom or your grandma, it's, that blows my mind. So I would just hope at the very least, insurance takes care of any sort of surrounding property damage that could ever happen, or at least there's a contingency plan there. Other than that, that's my comment. Thank you.
I don't know if the applicant would like, would you like an answer on the?
I'll take an answer on the insurance if you do have one. Thank you.
Yeah, So we do not operate the helicopter company, but they are required to have malpractice insurance and liability insurance. We as well have liability insurance, as any business would, but for a hospital, obviously, for our size, we have to have that. One thing I would like to say is that we are aware that the helicopter company has continued to come over from the east, and we are not happy about that. We've set up a meeting with them to talk to them again and say, this needs to stop. Even before we have the helicopter pad, they're landing in our parking lot, and we want to be good partners or good neighbors. I've had several discussions with Ms. Potter about this, and she and I are on the same page. So I just want to make that known that we're not being obtuse about this, that we are trying to figure out how do we get this to stop. And we just started the discussions in the last month here, so if it continues to happen, if we have to have a meeting with every single pilot, that's what we'll end up doing. But yeah, in terms of malpractice insurance, both entities need to have that in place and liability insurance in place. So.
Thank you.
All right, I just want to echo Commissioner Smith's comments. We definitely take these concerns seriously, and this is no doubt going to be a change for this neighborhood, especially the residents that back up right against the old golf club property. I sincerely recognize how much of a change this is going to be. That being said, we're a growing city, and this is a service that New Mexico desperately needs when you look at healthcare in this state and compare it to other places in this country. And so we do hear you, and I think some of the concerns have been addressed by the applicant. I'm encouraged to hear that they have talked to their air operator and their pilots to notify them that they shouldn't be flying in or out over the neighborhood. And so certainly like to thank the applicant for that tonight, but just want to echo Commissioner Smith's comments.
I got one more question for the applicant. Is Native Air the only service that can provide this, or is there another competitor that possibly could be contracted to perform this service?
Currently, they're the main air transport that we have available to us, so we've looked at other options as well. But, again, I feel like we can get them to comply. We just started conversations with them about this when Ms. Potter started, giving us more detailed information about the number of times they've flown over their homes.
I just want to make one more comment. I spent 22 years in the Coast Guard, and I spent several tours on ships where we had helicopters. And often, weather was a factor in which direction, and how we would land on, how the helicopters would land on our vessels. Has Native Air, implied that, they have come in from the east because of weather conditions, or are they just basically have just been flying in any way they would want to?
We haven't gotten that far in discussions. The initial discussions were with their local representative. And as a matter of fact, she sent a text message to me today wanting to bring her manager by to have some discussions. They did request a route that was a little bit kind of from the southeast, and we said, no, that's not acceptable. They gave us, I can't remember what the cross street was, but they said, can we approach that way? And I just said, no, that's not acceptable. It's still over the homes, even though it was a little bit southeast. So I imagine that they're going to want to talk to us about, weather conditions and whatnot, but I think, our stance is we want to be good neighbors. We don't want to be disruptive to people, and we want to come in from the south or the southwest.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve item 8.1.
I second.
Commission, this is a roll call vote on approval of a helipad. Commissioner Smith?
I vote yes with conditions that the hospital finds a solution to the flight pattern for the helicopter service, if that's permissible by staff.
Commissioner Costa?
I vote yes to approve based on staff recommendation.
Commissioner Vega?
I also vote yes based on staff recommendation.
And Chair Kaiser?
Yes, based on staff recommendation, consistency with Elevate Las Cruces.
Commissioners, the SUP has been approved.
Okay, we are moving on to our second agenda item for the evening. That is item 9.1, a special use permit to allow a cannabis establishment within the required 300 buffer from a single-family zoning district.
Commissioner Kaiser, or Chair Kaiser and Commissioners, this case is a special use permit request for a property located at 1128 South Solano Drive, and Vincent Venegas, interim planner for the record. Sorry about that. It is case 22Z01000138. Current conditions on the property are as follows. The property is currently zone C2. That's our medium intensity commercial district. Originally developed as a small retail service center, it has seen some changes in terms of use, but nonetheless, it remains within that realm of activity. The property is located just on the west side of Solano, but just north of the intersection of California and Solano, and we are talking about property that is 0.23 acres in size. The surrounding property or neighborhood is largely retail, office. There's some quasi-institutional. In fact, the property immediately south is quasi-institutional. There's some multifamily and some single-family uses immediately west and northwest of the subject location. And supporting zoning district for those uses are generally the R1A, R2, some O1, which is our office, C2 and C3 zoning. The zoning map shown here illustrates the parcel in question. It is outlined in red within the C2 district. The residential properties, single family in nature, in terms of zoning, are located here. This larger property is actually a multifamily. I believe it's a fourplex type development or apartments. This is single family in terms of use. And even though this has a multi-dwelling zoning designation, it is developed as a townhouse style of development, zero lot line, that kind of thing. Elsewhere on the other side, you do have a significant commercial buffer along Solano Drive before you get to other R1A zoning on the east side. Showing the aerial, it appears as if they're connected, but they are not. There's actually about 3-4 feet, maybe 5 foot separation between these two buildings. But again, the area outlined in red is the target property in question. And the cannabis retail activity, as indicated by the applicant, will take place in this front portion of the building. And if you go from the closest proximity or the footprint along that border, if you drew a line here over to the single-family zoning, which goes in the middle of the right-of-way, you're talking roughly about 93 plus or minus feet separation for that required buffer between the building footprint for cannabis and single-family zoning district boundaries. So that represents roughly a 207-foot deviation to that, and so that's why we are coming before this body for special use consideration. And again, some of the other uses in the area here, you have another threeplex or triplex. Here are those fourplex units, 2 in each of these buildings, and a single family up above in this area. The further you go west into the property, you do have that mixture of residential use from apartments over to your single family style of development. So the building was constructed according to county assessor records in 1989. In 1907, the property was created via the Valley View Addition subdivision. Those typically created much narrower lots, and this property consists of 3 of those. The property has been zoned C2 since pre-1970. That's our base year in which we take our zoning designations forward. And the building property, as indicated on those maps, is immediately adjacent to the R1A zoning district. The proposal is to include, in terms of product offering, cannabis. They currently sell CBD product on site, and that has been going on for some time, but they want to introduce cannabis into their product offering. The distance, as indicated on that aerial, is approximately 93 feet. And again, that's the footprint over to the single-family zone. 300 feet is required. All of the other distances, buffer distances, will be met, and just to, if we can remember, those include distance to other cannabis retailers and school and daycare properties. The use of the cannabis, or I should say the inclusion of cannabis into the product offering, will require that all CLC and state of New Mexico regulations governing that product be followed. And here we have just a couple of photos showing the property in question. This is the building right now. Obviously, as indicated on the window signs, they do sell CBD product. The lower photo just showing the angle, parking located right here along this side property line, and so entrance or ingress egress is right here through this curb cut onto Solano Drive. A couple of other shots intended to kind of give you an idea of what's further south of the subject property. And you got a church located immediately adjacent on the south, and then some other office and retail activities due south, as well as office type uses, and the same thing can be said for properties looking north. Public notice was sent to surrounding properties following the zoning code provisions, and staff did not receive any input to date. So staff recommends conditional approval. The first one, or first item, is in your packet, and that involves that the business owner shall restripe all parking stalls and install the required bicycle parking per the 2001 zoning code. There's a provision in the code that requires them to maintain those facilities. And the second bullet is not in your packet because that was found out today. I was researching a little bit deeper into the landscaping provisions. As some of those photos that I showed just a minute ago illustrate, there's largely no landscaping except for that beautiful Chinese pistache on the rear of the property, but nothing in those front landscape areas. So the second condition would require that the business owners reinstall actually, all landscaping and irrigation as per the Las Cruces design standards. And this is, again, because the landscape ordinance was in effect prior to construction and development of the property. And we did find in some of the Google images that, at least in 2010, there was definite landscaping on the property, and with exception to that one tree, everything else is either dead or removed since then. So those are the two conditions that staff would recommend you consider this evening. I have touched base with the property owners about these two conditions, and they are aware, and we're already thinking of improving the look of the property, so that's a positive thing. The findings for conditional approval are as follows. Except for the distance to single-family zoning district boundaries, all other distance requirements are met. Ingress and egress is from Solano Drive, limiting the impact to residential properties due west of the subject property. And there's a significant amount of compatibility in terms of this use to other uses along Solano Drive. 38-2, which is a section out of our zoning code, was found to be consistent with the proposal, so there's a strong meeting of that purpose and intent there. And the requirements outlined in the zoning code and those stipulated by the state of New Mexico will be followed as it relates to cannabis uses and the property itself. And I already touched on some of the maintenance issues that need to be addressed. So several goals and policies and actions support the SUP, and those are consistent with the urban neighborhood place type, which covers this area, and mixed use neighborhoods, expanding economic opportunities, employment opportunities, things of that nature are what those goals and policies and actions speak to. So your options this evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, is to vote yes and approve. You may vote no and deny. Please remember that any vote to deny would require new findings of fact, and that the ones presented this evening speak to favorable recommendation or approval action. And then if conditions are desired, that you include them in your motion. And again, the need for landscaping and the need for maintenance of the parking area, those were the two that staff recommended. And that concludes staff's presentation. I'll stand for any questions. The applicants are in attendance, and if you feel a need to ask them any questions, they will be available.
Thank you. Are there any questions from?
Yes, just a question for staff on just a clarification for the, I guess, property amendments that you guys were asking about. Mm-hmm. Just as far as being slightly familiar driving by this particular business, I'm not sure how long they've been open or not, but I guess my question would be, why were we not restriping and doing these other things when they initially got zoned, and why are we kind of forcing a cannabis thing for them to spend money doing these improvements when, particularly, I guess, driving by, it looks fine and looks normal like a functional business, and the city's been letting them operate like that in the first place?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Costa, that is a very good question. I can't give you an answer. In my research on this case, one of the other things we typically do, maybe not in 1989, I'm trying to think back, I was around back then, but I can't remember what we did. But, those three properties, today we seek to have those replatted into one, but they exist as three separate lots. In terms of the landscaping, when it was originally developed, I have a slide in here if I needed to pull it up that showed landscaping in those front areas, and it appears as if they put the drainage in back, which is fine where the Chinese pistachios, the tree is, and they have an obligation to improve the parking area, keep it maintained per code, but why they didn't require the landscaping to be reinstalled with this latest business operation, I couldn't tell you. Should have been caught.
I guess I kind of find it unfair for this particular instance to be the place that bottlenecks them for doing, conducting business as is. I mean, if you probably drive by or even look at their Google Pics on the business, they're selling kratom, hemp flower, CBD, tobacco products, paraphernalia associated with this. And I guess, to me, introducing the THC into that doesn't really change much of what they do. And for that, I guess it seems unfortunate to make it a hard stop for them to have to do some cosmetic beautifying, which I totally understand the need for. I just don't know if it has to, I just don't see why it has to go with the license application in the first place, considering how hard cannabis is for everybody to just get licensed in the first place. But that's personal opinion.
Any other questions from the commission? Seeing none. All right, are there any members from the public who wish to speak on this item? You can just get a show of hands if there's anyone who wishes to speak. Yes, sir, you in back? Please come forward. And if you could state your name, I'll swear you in before you begin.
Sure, yes. My name is Zeke Rodriguez. I'm a president of CCIA, local politics and crime committee.
Okay.
I'm also a local business owner. And I actually spoke, I think it was about a month ago when we had the same kind of discussion in the area. And my main issue, I just wanted to clarify this, is that in Chaparral, it was a special use permit put in the middle of a residential neighborhood. There was no commercial real estate or outlet anywhere in the area. And part of my job as the president of the local politics and crime committee is to stay abreast with everything. And I found out that in that area, the homes lost 30% of their value. And what I'm here today to say is that this is not the same case. This is in a residential commercial area. It's a residential, yes, but it's primarily in a commercial area. So, pretty much the opposite of what happened in Chaparral. Because it is a commercial area, it will boost the value of the local economy. It should therefore boost the value of the residential area as well. And it's not like we're in need of more commerce and business in Las Cruces. So I just wanted to clarify that my comments against what happened in Chaparral were specific to that situation. I went to the property today, took a look at it, and this is an area that does need more economic boosting. The local area, I think, would benefit greatly from it. And that's the main thing I wanted to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, looking for a motion in a second to approve, and remember there are conditions associated with this.
So I want to make a motion to approve item 9.1 with the conditions that the owner restrict the parking stalls and install bike parking, as well as update the landscaping and irrigation.
Ms. Commissioner Smith, I second.
Commissioners, this is a roll call for a vote to approve a special use permit with conditions. Commissioner Smith?
Yes, based on site visit and staff recommendation.
Commissioner Costa?
Yes, based on site visit and staff recommendation.
Commissioner Vega?
Yes, with the conditional approval as previously noted, based on site visit and staff recommendation.
Chair Kaiser?
Yeah, yes, based on staff recommendation and consistency with Elevate Las Cruces.
Commissioners, the SUP was approved with conditions 4-0.
All right, are there any discussion or staff announcements this evening? Seeing none, just one quick question for staff. Is the expectation for December's meeting going to remain on the calendar as is, or are we looking to move that up a week?
Commission, Mr. Chair, I believe as we discussed during last month's meeting, we should be moving it up a week as well.
Okay, thank you.
So I believe it's a tentative date of December 20th.
Thank you. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
All second, all in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving.